Hi my darlings, I'm Sophie Darling and welcome back to the channel. If you love anime, heartfelt reactions and deep dives into symbolism and themes, then you are in the right place. Before we jump into today's reaction, please don't forget to hit that like button to show some love, subscribe if you haven't already, and please do ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment of fun. And if you want even more exclusive content like early access to my reactions, full-length anime watch-alongs, and an amazing community of fellow anime lovers, then please do check out my Patreon. You can find the link in the description box below. Your support truly does mean the world as it helps to keep these reactions coming, and I'd love to have you join our cozy little anime family. And today we are reacting to episode 15 of Attack on Titan, and we kind of left on a little bit of a cliffhanger, which makes me very worried about Reiner. I don't think Reiner is going to die, but I think he's going to be severely injured. We haven't seen Bertholdt, and I'm very worried as to where Bertholdt is right now and if he's going to come out the woodworks. We don't know what he's up to, but we also don't know if the Beast Titan has a bigger plan in place, and that's why we haven't seen Bertholdt, because he has another mission that he needs to perform. I am a tad worried about when Bertholdt shows up again. I'm still on the hill that Erwin's dying before season 3. There's just too many coincidences, too many little bits of foreshadowing. All that to me indicates that we are coming to the end of Erwin's arc, that Asayama is going to write him out very shortly, and in doing so it's going to traumatize me, but his death is going to be a noble sacrifice. It's going to be for something, it's going to mean something, it's going to have purpose that benefits and saves humanity as a whole, because that's a death that Erwin deserves, and I don't see Asayama not giving him a noble death, because it just wouldn't be fitting to Erwin's character and his development so far to not have a death that involves him sacrificing himself for a larger cause, for a larger benefit. And again, ties back to Armin's words in series 1, those who can't sacrifice anything cannot change anything. And I believe Erwin is going to sacrifice himself to change the direction of the battle, to change focus, to allow the Survey Corps an opportunity to survive and to grow strong, because he mentioned that they've grown weak, and that's because of all the people that they have lost in the pursuit of truth and knowledge. And I think he understands that the Survey Corps need an opportunity to survive in order to grow strong, to stay the spear of humanity. And he's going to realize that the only way to ensure their survival is to act as bait, to be a distraction tactic. And it's going to break my heart, but without further ado, we're going to get into episode 15, because I need to know what happens to Reiner, and I'm very nervous and I'm very scared, and I hope he's not dead, because it's going to break my heart if he is, because he doesn't deserve to die. And I know people argue differently, but if you argue that Reiner deserves to die, then I think you are missing the deeper themes of this show and are looking at it from a black or white perspective instead of looking at the nuance, which is what Asayama wants you to do. And maybe you should go and rewatch the show, because I don't think it's as simple as good and evil, because that's just insulting to Asayama's writing. But hey, without further ado, let's get into episode 15. They're starting with this scene, even if it costs our lives. Save him, protect him. And that's something Erwin's always going to believe in. Marco overheard them. I knew Marco heard something he shouldn't have heard. Oh, my boy. I knew that he knew more than he should have done, and that's why he died. It's not. He knows it's not.
突然現れて突然消える超大型巨人の正体は
Marco!
おそらく人間ってことになる。
Are we finally gonna learn the truth then
人
about
の
how he
姿をした敵
died?
の巨人がいるってことだ。
We saw that scene in series 1.
ライナー何をライナー
Let go. We saw that in series 2.
いや、マルコ、お前は察しがいいからダメなんだよ。
They have to get rid of him because he knows.
ライナーがおかしいんだ。
Oh, Marco.
俺たちの会話を聞かれた。もう生かしてはおけない。
I feel like she was saying that to Reiner, not to Marco.
マルコの立体起動装置を外せ。
They were gonna leave him stranded.
お前、さっきコニーを命張って助けてたよな。この悪の民族に情が移っちまったからか。
To this evil
証
race,
明してみせろよ。
there are two races of
お
people.
前の帰りを待つ親父が汚れた民族と違うって言うんなら今すぐ証明しろ。
So they believe themselves superior to the race within the walls. They took his gear and left him stranded, so the Titan ate him. Marco.
それでこそ戦士だ。兄、よくやった。
あの時は巨人が集まるのを待っていたのか。なんだよ。なんでそんなに急ぐんだよ。まだちゃんと話し合ってないじゃないか。
なんでマルコが食われてる。
That's when they start to see the split self with Rhino.
だから
It's just such a hard scene to watch. I had such a soft spot for Marco in series 1, so like seeing the full context of his death and how they just left him there to die is just really heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because Marco didn't deserve to die that way. But also they should never have been in a position where they were forced to make that judgment call, where they didn't have an option to talk it through, to even compromise. And I get why they made the decision they did. You know, they're undercover, they can't have anyone blowing their cover. But the fact that these children have been forced by people higher than themselves into believing that this is justified and forcing them to make such hard decisions and adult decisions as children that have resulted in the death of someone else who's just a child and who's innocent in all of this too. That's the thing, Marco's an innocent. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to die because the people in Reiner's hometown believe themselves superior, that they believe that those within the walls are an evil race. But that just confirmed my theory that it's two races at war with each other, that they believe that this race within the wall are evil, possibly because the first king fought a war against their people, so they see them as evil. Just the fact that Marco is an innocent, he didn't know the truth, he didn't know the history of the war, he didn't know why the wars were built, he didn't know any of this, and yet he's treated as the enemy, as if he's contributed to the pain and suffering of their people, which he hasn't, because he doesn't know anything. He wasn't alive, he wasn't old enough to know. And it just breaks my heart that like these kids are forced into a war, forced into a battle, and have no choice. There's nothing they can do. They don't have an option. We saw that Reiner got the living shit kicked out of him by the Beast Titan, and he probably got the living shit kicked out of him for questioning him. And there seems to be indications that where they're coming from is an incredibly harsh environment that doesn't seem to care about forcing young children to partake in a war, partake in a reconnaissance mission against the enemy, even if it means them losing their lives and losing their innocence. They don't care. They just, it's so cruel. And it now makes sense that when we saw that flashback in series 2, where Reiner was like, why are they eating Marco? I didn't quite understand what he meant, but now it makes sense that that was the first indication to Bertholdt that Reiner was psychologically breaking. He was splitting himself between the Reiner that was a soldier, that cared and loved the people that he trained with, and that's why he didn't understand what was happening to Marco, because it's like he's suddenly suppressed the side of him, the warrior side of him, that essentially condemned Marco to his death, that forced Annie to take his ODM gear, and as a result leaving Marco stranded and to the mercy of the Titans because he couldn't get away. There was nothing Marco could do. He couldn't get away. He was left stranded. He suppressed that guilt and suppressed that part of himself that is uncaring because he sees them as an evil race, a hateful race, because that's how he's been raised to see them, how he's been raised to view the walls and the people within them by his own people, showing that there is an ethno-nationalist conflict to an extent that they both feel entitled to the land that they live within and therefore are at odds with one another, and probably believe that their own race is superior to that of another race, despite the fact that they're all humans. It doesn't matter that they're different races. They're all humans at the end of the day, and that's what should be unifying them, not setting them apart from each other. You could see that that was when Bertholdt realized that Reiner was psychologically fracturing, that he was splitting himself between the warrior part of himself and the soldier part of himself, and that he was having to apply some cognitive dissonance in order to cope with what he was doing. But at the end of the day, he's a kid. Like, who can psychologically cope with the adult decisions that they're having to make and the choices that they're being forced to enact in order to protect themselves and to protect their people without risking their own lives? And I feel so sorry for Reiner. I feel so sorry for Marco. I feel so sorry for everybody. And as much as I can't forgive Reiner for Marco's death, I still don't hate him, because I don't think he had a choice. I don't think he had a way of coming back from this. But it's just interesting to see that that was the first instance of him splitting himself psychologically in order to cope with what he's being forced to do, and that it's his way of coping not only with what he's being tasked with, but also the trauma of the decisions he has to make by distancing himself from the warrior part that has to be cold and has to get blood on his hands with the soldier that cares and mourns for the comrade he's just lost. Just fuck. I didn't expect to be like 6 minutes into an episode and already having a deep conversation, but also crying.
兄ちゃんならきっと大丈夫だよ。拷問なんか受けちゃいないって。ましてや容量のいい兄ちゃんのことだ。
Did they fight because he wanted to go back for Annie and the Beast Titan didn't?
へえ、まだ決意が固まってないってこと。もう一度やってもいいんだぞ、ライナー。ただし次お前が負けたら、その鎧は他の戦士に譲ってもらう。
いえ、そんなつもりは。
目標は一つだろ。座標を奪還し、この呪われた歴史に終止符を打つ。もう終わらせよう。
So this cursed history. So they want to eradicate this race of people because in their mind they probably don't feel safe unless everyone within the walls is dead. And they'll use the founding titan to do that. They want to steal the founding titan ability. Maybe they want to use it to brainwash and put everyone under their power. I hate it. I don't like it.
勇敢なる戦士たちよ、ここで決着をつけ、我々の使命を果たそうじゃないか。
I'm wondering if they either want to use the founding titan to eradicate everyone within the walls because they see them as an evil race that needs to be eradicated, or if they want to use the founding titan to take control and colonize everyone within the walls as an act of revenge. I don't know if they want to kill them all or if they want to just use the Founding Titans' abilities to colonize them. Maybe as revenge for them having been colonized at some point by the First King. It just seems like vengeance for a history that they remember and has been passed down from generation to generation, enacted on those within the walls who have no clue what's going on. And again, I think that's why Reiner has some psychological struggles with what they're doing, because he's come to the realization that they don't know what's going on. They don't know the history. They don't know what they know. And they're attacking innocent people. Yes, what the First King did and his people did probably wasn't innocent. It probably was horrible and it probably was cruel. And it's obviously caused some lasting, significant trauma to Annie, Reiner, and Bertholdt's people, the warriors, clearly to the point that they see them as an evil race and a race that deserves this being enacted upon them. But we now have a new generation of people that have no idea of what's happened. They are innocent in all of this, and maybe that also plays into Reiner's discontentment with what's going on, because he realizes that this is not a conscious enemy. This is not an enemy that is willing to also go to war with them. They don't know they exist. They don't harbor the hatred and resentments that they've been taught that they have. The people within the walls don't hate them because they don't know they exist. They don't resent them because they don't know they exist. But that's what Annie, Reiner, and Bertholdt have been told. So of course it's going to cause some psychological stress. So this is the mission. The War Chief Zeke is their commander who's leading them on the mission against the wall. But I imagine he gets orders from a higher up. So it was coffee. I was a bit like, was it hot chocolate coffee? But it was coffee. They had a decanter.
散々言ってきたことだが、俺とはこれから離れた位置につく。少しは自分で考えて行動しろよ。正直今まで頼りにならなかったぜ。
分かってるよ。
今まではな。終わらせるんだろう、ここで。
そうさ。ここで勝って終わらせてやる。
Oh, I have a bad feeling that Reiner might be dead. Especially because they're going into all this flashbacks with him. Oh, look at this little blush. Where is Ymir, by the way? Does she go back to the people? Like, where is she? He told you not to wait on a signal, though, Bertholdt. Because he's still their friend. Is he actually dead? He's giving the signal to Bertholdt. He's still alive. That's where he is. Oh my god, he's gonna yeet him over. Okay. Oh my my god. Believed to be a beverage consumed by the Titan shifters while they are camping out. Confirmed to have a pleasant aroma from the remaining liquid found. Its origin is unknown, but this suggests the existence of an outside culture that consumes such liquors similar to black tea. Maybe it is hot chocolate, because the pleasant aroma to me would be chocolate, not necessarily coffee. But maybe some people do find the aroma of coffee pleasant. But that looks like a decanter for like grinding coffee beans. So to me, I was like, that's coffee. But it could be for making cocoa powder. Maybe. I don't know. It could be either. I'm fixating too much on this drink.
待て、この距離じゃもうあれは避けられない。今だ。まずはここらを吹き飛ばす。
He's not gonna transform until he saves Reiner.
ライナー生きてる。
Okay. He's really badly injured.
に意識を移すことに成功したのか。でもこれは最後の手段だ。一つ頼みがある。少しだけ体を動かしてくれ。できなかったらすまない。覚悟を決めてくれ。終わらせてくる。
Why do I feel like Bertholdt might die? That we were maybe baited into believing it would be Reiner, but it's not Reiner, it'll be Bertholdt that sacrifices himself for Reiner. Why can't you negotiate? Yes. Bertholdt is reasonable. Speak with him. Let them talk. Bertholdt, please.
話をしたら全員死んでくれるか。僕たちの要求はわずか2つ。エレンの引き渡しと壁中人類の死滅。これが嘘偽りのない現実だ。
But why? They don't know. You need to tell them why.
誰がそんなことを決めた。僕だ。
Why?
なんだって
僕が決めた。
それは残念だよ。僕はもう兄の悲鳴は聞きたくないっていうのに。このままじゃ兄は家畜の餌に
すればいい。豚の餌にすればいい。本当に捕まえているのなら。
Bertholdt, please be reasonable.
出せばまた僕が取り乱すと思ったか。おとなしくて気の弱いベルトルトなら言いくるめて隙をつけると思ったのか。下がれエレン。分かってんだろ。お前の手うまくじゃねえぞ。
It's Armin's fight.
アルミなんで。分かってるんだ。
Because Armin wants to know why this is happening. No, that's not the reason.
そうやって震えているうちは何もできやしないって。
そこまで見えていてなんで話に乗ったの。
君たちを前にした途端にまた泣き言を繰り出し許しを請うんじゃないかってね。うん。 君たちは大切な仲間だし、ちゃんと殺そうと思ってる。
それは僕たちが悪魔の末裔だから。
いや、君たちは誰も悪くないし、悪魔なんかじゃないよ。
Then why?
全員死ななきゃいけない。もうダメなんだ。
Oh, I love Mikasa so much.
アルミ、追わないで。彼がいつ巨人になるかわからない。瀕死のライナーがむき出しのままじゃ自分でとどめを刺すことになるから。
He's buying time.
今ならライナーを人質にして白人戦に挑める。というか、あれが本当にベルトルトなの。私にはまるで別人に見えた。僕もだ。
仰向けになって。
He's regenerating. Or he's moved to protect himself.
恐怖もあまり感じていないし、きっとどんな結果になっても受け入れられる気がする。そうだ、誰も悪くない。全部仕方なかった。だって世界は
It's cruel.
こんなにも残酷じゃないか。
Oh, Hanji. Oh my god. It's like a nuclear bomb. Where's Hanji?
無事か。
大丈夫。
ハンジャンは
ベルトルトの近くにいた。
Where's Hanji? No, I refuse. I refuse. If I didn't see her die, she's not dead.
まさか。生き残ったのは俺たちだけか。
アルミン、私たちの指揮権は今あなたにある。これより撤退。
They don't have a choice.
父は保護。超大型巨人は当初の作戦通りに消耗戦で対応する。
ベルトルトを団長たちのいる壁に近づけるのはまずい。内門の建物まで燃やされたら団長たちは獣の巨人と挟み撃ちにされちまう。
それじゃベルトルトはここで倒さなくちゃいけないの？今ここにいる僕たちだけの力で。
Oh my god.
アルミン、火がもう指示よ。
This just feels like it's going to be a suicide mission.
Sa どうする？獣の巨人。すべての作戦通りか。
He looks like he doesn't have a fucking care in the world. I'm so sad this episode. It's essentially been confirmed that it doesn't matter that those within the wall don't know what happened. Doesn't matter that they have had no say, no control over it. They have to die because the world is cruel. So they have to pay the price for what was the past and what was done in the past. And the cruelty of the world means that there are no innocents, even those that are ignorant. And it's just... oh, it's awful. Whole conversation about Bertholdt seeming like a different person, possibly because the Bertholdt that they knew, the meek and mild Bertholdt, isn't actually who he really is. It's because they never really knew him to begin with. But also it could just be that he's come to the resolution that he doesn't have a choice. You know, it's do or die. He stands his ground and he wins and he rescues Annie, or he dies here for the mission, for the cause. Either way, he has to do what he believes is in his best interest, and that is following orders, following command. Whereas I genuinely was hoping that they'd be able to have a deeper conversation, that they'd be able to be open to negotiating, but clearly that was not the case. It just breaks my heart, it really does, because again, they're just children. They shouldn't have to be in this situation. They shouldn't have to be faced with doing this. They shouldn't be in such a place that they believe that they have no other option, that there is no negotiation, that there's no room for an alternative. And that's essentially just emphasizing to me that where Reiner, Annie and Bertholdt come from, that is the case. There's no deviating, there's no negotiation. They have no intention to negotiate or cohabitate with the people within the walls. Their ultimate goal and ultimate end is to seal the founding titan and erase those within the walls entirely. Their mission is to essentially commit a genocide. And I don't know if it's a genocide against them because they believe that it's revenge and justified for a genocide committed against their people by the first king and this race of people, or whether they just see it as the only way for their people to live in peace is to no longer have the threat of those within the walls being so close by because of their history of war and the conflict that they have shared. But either way, if it is to do with having had a genocide committed against them, as awful and atrocious as that is, there is no justification ever in this world to use genocide as a revenge tactic, as a way of returning the treatment that you have received. It is only begetting violence with more violence. And in doing so, you are just repeating the cycle of violence so that it is ongoing. So there is no room for growth. There's no room for humanity to survive and coexist together. So what you have done is just essentially condemned humanity to a violent existence, to pushing both races of people to the brink by continuing conflict, by not being open to speaking and negotiating and finding a peaceful resolution, especially considering how much time has passed since all of this, is just a huge, huge indicator as to how humanity's need for vengeance and pettiness and greed is the ultimate enemy. Humanity is its own enemy. Humanity is its own undoing. By not forgiving the sins of the past, by not allowing your community to move on and to enjoy peace, but instead raising them to remember their trauma, to re-articulate that trauma and that this race within the walls is evil, regardless of them not knowing the truth of their own past, is just inciting violence for the sake of violence. It achieves nothing. There is no end result here. There is no winning. Because in their mind, they probably think that those within the walls could turn on them at any point because they have done so before, and that they could use the founding titan to wipe them out. So in their minds, they're probably like, if we eradicate them and we take this founding titan for ourselves, it cannot be weaponized against us. Now people can truly live in peace because the sleeping threat that is the race within the walls no longer exists. But at the same time, they were never a threat because they didn't know what was going on. So you've just provoked a sleeping giant, essentially, for what? Revenge? Pettiness? You've provoked them. There was no threat until you poked the bear, essentially. So yes, humanity is its own worst enemy because they cannot allow people to just exist in harmony and peace. They have to incite a need for conflict. They have to find a justification for violence. They have to find a way to make themselves feel superior and to enact revenge for the past. So there's a quote that I see every single day when I go into work in Belfast, and it is actually words painted on the wall of one of the oldest pubs in Belfast called the Garrick. And the quote is, "A nation that keeps one eye on the past is wise. A nation that keeps two eyes on the past is blind." And I feel like that's really significant here, in that if you only focus on the past, you neglect the present and the future. You neglect progression to essentially allow the replication and recirculation of trauma and violence to reoccur. It's an indication that to be aware of the past is to be informed of how it impacts the present and impacts the future. It's to be knowledgeable and aware that we don't repeat the same mistakes that we made before. Whereas keeping both eyes on the past is detrimental to the progression of society. We're so hell-bent on seeking vengeance for old grudges that you are not looking at what the present and future should be, which is focusing on healing, on stability, on ending the trauma that your people have experienced and witnessed, on making sure that violence does not repeat itself, that the next generation of children growing up never have to experience violence or a war. It really strikes me how similar what I'm seeing in Attack on Titan is to the ethno-nationalist conflict in Northern Ireland, which I did my PhD on, and there's just so many similarities in two opposing communities, two opposing races of people refusing to live together, refusing to find peace and discriminating against each other in an endless cycle of violence where one act of violence begets another act of violence, to the point that what you end up with is a new generation of children traumatized and enacting what they have seen and witnessed instead of finding ways to peacefully progress society. It comes back to the fact that it is not a bad thing to be aware of the past, because the past informs the present, it informs the future, especially when there has been trauma and significant conflict. You cannot progress if you are not aware of history, because if you're not aware of history, you are damned to repeat it. But if you keep both eyes on the past, if you are so rooted in history, you are so rooted in what happened before, you are never able to progress. You are never going to see a peaceful coexistence. You are going to categorically refuse it, even if that means that an entirely new generation of children grow up suffering and in pain because they're forced to reproduce a conflict that they were not alive to see. They're forced to reproduce a hatred that they never experienced directly because they were not born yet. So it's just striking that Attack on Titan very much is showing that it is healthy to look at the past. It's healthy to know about the past, because not knowing about it means you're not aware of how to prevent violence from happening again in the future. But if you're so absorbed by it, if you're so hell-bent on looking backwards, you'll never be able to look forwards. You'll never be able to find positive conclusions. You'll never be able to imagine a peaceful coexistence between two races of people. And I don't know, that just really struck me. So the thing is people get annoyed when you apply politics to things like anime or media in general, including games. But it's like, the whole reason these shows have meaning is because we're able to look at the deeper aspects of them. We're able to make those socio-political connections. We're able to apply them to the real world because they are influenced by the real world. Literature and media doesn't happen in a vacuum. The writers are influenced by what they see, what they read in history, by the politics around them, by society in general. Just because the media isn't explicitly political in that it states I'm talking about X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean that it cannot be applied, because that's the whole point of media literacy, is being able to look at something and see the deeper socio-political content there, to see how it applies to the real world, to be able to understand how it connects to what we know in politics, how it connects to what we know in history. That's what media literacy is. It's engaging with the show beyond the surface level. It's engaging with what the show has to tell us about the deeper themes and the deeper connections it wants to establish. Yes, the politics in Attack on Titan are set in a fictional world, but they have real world applications. We have seen those applications. We recognize those applications, and we're supposed to make that connection with the show by having a deeper understanding. We're supposed to recognize what Attack on Titan is showing us can relate to our own political, moral, and social beliefs, how this can allow us to more deeply interpret what Asayama is presenting. The whole point of having these themes and these deeper conversations is to make us think, to make us engage with the material, because if you were just engaging with it on a surface level, you're missing the whole point. You're missing the deeper message. You're ignoring the ability to reflect on what the story has to tell you and the power that it can have in altering your world perspective and your worldview, or even allowing you to understand something that you may have found previously confusing in real contemporary politics. Attack on Titan might help you understand it better because you're able to recognize how it's applied. Media is designed for you to reflect and analyze. It's not just there for you to be like, oh wow, that's cool. That was a cool scene. Oh, look at that badass character and that badass dialogue. There is much more to it than that. It's deeper than just cool animation and titans. It is about the brutality of war. It's about trauma. It's about society's inability to let go of the past, and as a consequence, violence recirculates. It's about an entirely new generation of children being traumatized. It's about the desire for freedom. What is peace truly? It's about questioning if free will is even possible in a society where you are kept ignorant. If free will is even an option in the world that they exist within. It's about fighting for freedom. It's about fighting for what you believe in, about what is morally right, what is morally justifiable. If you keep them ignorant of their own history, are they not doomed to bear the consequences and repercussions for something that they were never able to learn and progress from? Peace was never an option because peace was never given a chance, because both societies are doomed to replicate the cycles of the past. The people within the walls are doomed because they're not able to learn from history because their mind has been wiped. Therefore, they have been kept ignorant. There is no way for them to progress and communicate with these other people because they don't know that they exist. And Annie, Reiner, and Bertholdt's people are doomed to repeat violence against the people within the walls because they cannot progress from the past. They cannot learn from the past. They are stuck within it. They are bound to it. There is no progression. There is no chance for peace because they just never wanted to give peace a try. And this is why I say that the media is so much deeper than what you think it is. It has real world connotations. It is inherently political. And if you disagree, you didn't watch the show properly. These shows are political for the simple fact that they are influenced by real world politics. They're influenced by real life conflicts, which in turn have had socio-political impacts on people and on history. And that in turn influences the way that Asayama writes. So yeah, Attack on Titan is inherently political, and Death Note is inherently political, and every show that I'm bound to watch is inherently political. And if you're one of those that complains, why can't a show just be a show? Why does politics have to be involved? You lack media literacy, and that's a shame, and you should really learn to improve on that, because looking at something at a base level and just presuming that it has no deeper meaning is an incredibly shallow existence, and you have my utmost pity, especially if you play games like Bioshock and then go, Bioshock's not political. Ooh, it's very much political. Also, one of my favorite game series ever. If you got this far, please do tell me in the comments below what your favorite game series is, and thank you so much for watching to this point. You are the real ones for listening to these very long outros. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next episode, bye.